I love Peter. You gotta love Peter. He's so great in this reading because he's typical Peter. He's in over his head. Peter is like so in over his head in this reading. Here he is with a brand new revelation of the glory of Jesus Christ, pouring out light, pouring out from every pore of Jesus, and even enlightening his clothes. And he's in this spiritual mountaintop experience, and he's so over his head. And so he always just blurts out the first thing that comes to him that seems he's a common sense guy, you know. He just takes a look and then says, well, I know what to do about this. This is great. We're not going anywhere. We're staying up here on top of this mountain. And I'll tell you what, Jesus, leave it to me. I'll take care of it. I'm going to build us some tents here, and I'll get a campfire, and don't you worry about it. I can take everything, carry everything. We're not leaving here because we're staying on the mountaintop. I love Peter. He's so great because he's so in over his head when he gets into spiritual experience. And of course, isn't Peter? He's us, and that, I guess, is why we love him so much. Here he is having a new experience of God. The glory of Jesus Christ somehow coming to him in a new way. And he's stunned. He's slightly stunned, and he's so over his head that he doesn't know what to do. And he blurts out the first thing that comes along. And he's so attracted to the beauty of holiness. He's so drawn into it that he gets way in over his head, and then he gets scared. And then he falls on the ground, scared to death. And then Jesus has to come and pick him up and say, listen to the voice that comes out of the cloud. Listen to him. Don't listen to Peter. Listen to him. And Jesus has to come and minister to him, pick him up, lead him down the mountain to the ordinary, average, everyday. And that's what Jesus always does. He's always leading us from our mountaintop spiritual experiences, because eventually we have to always go back to the ordinary. We have to come down from it. Doesn't matter how high the spiritual experience is. It doesn't matter how much we want to stay there. We must always come back down to the ordinary. And Jesus is so good. He will always bring us there. And then we can say, finally, what Peter says, it doesn't even know that he's right. It is good that we were here. It is good that we were here. In our first reading, a reading that can be so baffling in many ways about Abraham hearing that God wants to take back what God has given to him, the very gift that God has given to him. Now, he's in a place where he must give it back to God. And then, of course, once he's made the spiritual experience of saying to himself in one way or another, I'm not about the gifts from God, I'm about God. This is really original. I am about God more than anything else. And I'm grateful for his gifts, but I'm about God more than anything else. And then God gives back to him what God had given to him originally. And it's a pattern in the Old Testament of God blessing someone with great blessings, and then maybe they get too attached to the blessings and not to the one who gave them. God is able to then take them away again until there's a spiritual growth and a greater dedication to God. And then God gives them back at a greater degree than how he had given them originally. When it comes to the experience of God, we're all in way over our heads, folks. And if these scriptures don't say that, I don't know what they say. And yet they also say to us, don't be afraid. Listen to him. It will be good that we are here. As you have heard, this is a morning and a mass when our disability inclusion ministry is inviting us into a deeper understanding of God. They're inviting us to see the glory of Jesus shining into our lives through disabilities in maybe a way that we haven't seen before. And so how do we do that? How do we take that journey with them? I think that there is something deep in our hearts that thinks that the first thing that we must do when someone has a need is that we must give them something. And it's a good instinct, but it's usually not true. Usually, if we are going to really go any deeper in the spiritual life, when we see someone in need and we decide that we want to try to help, we don't first give them something. First of all, we have to have the openness to listen to them until we receive something from them. We don't first give, we receive. And what we receive from them is their questions. Are we open enough to receive the questions of the people in our parish with disabilities? I think that's part of the questions that our disability committee is asking us to consider and reflect on this morning. Are we open enough to, first of all, listen until we can receive something, their questions? And I think some of their questions. I've tried to listen a little bit to some, and not nearly enough. I think they might be asking some questions like maybe go like this. Why is it that we always say that Jesus healed the sick, but we never say that part of Jesus' ministry, a big part of Jesus' ministry, was ministering to the disabled, the lame, the deaf, the mute, those who are tormented by inner spirits? That's Jesus ministering to the disabled. Jesus had a disability ministry. He offered health care to the disabled. It was a big part of his ministry. And does that change our thinking? Does that give us a new understanding of who Jesus is and his ministry? Is that a light from Christ that shines on us? Another question that perhaps they might be asking us, perhaps we might ask if we listened deeply to their lives and their words, is maybe there's some asking the question, how do I integrate myself fully into this Christian community, given the disability that I have? And how do I have full participation, full access to all of the sacraments of the church? Especially when one of the questions that they might be asking is, how am I going to go to confessions when somebody in a motorized wheelchair can't get into the confessional because the door's not big enough? That might be a question they're asking. Why am I being deprived of a sacrament that I have a right to? And we have plans to change that, but we haven't done it yet. But it's on the drawing board because we heard that question. Maybe they're asking, maybe we might end up receiving a question from them that's something like, why is it that I can't tell you how I want to be noticed? I want to not be invisible. I want to be noticed so that I'm not invisible, but I don't want to be noticed like I'm another roadside attraction. Like we would pull our car off and read the sign, and here's another roadside attraction. Maybe we would hear them ask the question, how do I be noticed and not noticed? Maybe we would hear them ask the question, why is it that people think they have to give me something special when in reality what they have to give me is what I have a right to as a child of God, as a member of this parish, as someone who has rights, full rights to participation and access to the sacraments, as someone who has the right to be seen and to be accorded the full dignity of all people. And maybe they might even be asking the question, why is it that most of us here don't think about ourselves as disabled? Because most of us are going to become disabled eventually, if we live long enough, through either an accident, an illness, or age. And if you're wearing one of those things in your ears so you could hear me talk, you have a disability. John? And so maybe one of the questions they would be asking us is, why do we always think it's somebody else when it's us? When a third of the families, probably a third of the families in this parish, as in the United States, have a member of the family who has a disability. Why is it that we think it's always someone else when 20% of us probably have a disability if we fit the statistics of the US? And so they're challenging us to spend enough time to listen to them that we can receive something, not give something to them first of all. No, receive something first of all. Receive their questions about this parish and their Catholic life and how to live a rich life in this world. And how do we make room for that in this parish? This is a great challenge. But I think what they're trying to do, I'm going to put words in their mouth, I think what they're trying to do is get us to climb up on the mountain and see Jesus in a new way with a new light and a new glory that shines on us. And what will happen is so obvious. We will feel like we're in over our heads, and we'll get scared that we won't know what to do, or we'll make mistakes, which of course we will. But if we listen with enough openness to receive a question, Jesus will come to us and lead us back down the mountain into ordinary life, enlightened and empowered to live in a deeper way our Christian mission. And we will be able to say eventually, it is good that we were here. So as we continue our Lenten journey, we're in our Lenten retreat. And on that Lenten retreat, we're invited to go deeper in our conversion, a religious conversion, to fall more deeply in love with God, and a moral conversion to more and more decide that we will live by Christian values and not by simply what makes us happy and comfortable. And so our inclusion committee is giving us a great and wonderful challenge this morning to have both a religious conversion and a moral conversion. But it won't come by being the heroes that are going to give something. It will come by being the open people who can listen until we receive their question, and their question becomes our question.